here and. I request Dr. Pragati Sani to please hand the memento to Professor Mukherjee. So that one. Okay, so let me repeat again that Professor Mukherjee built this library. So we have the founder of this library with us. He's a prolific author. So his recent book, as already stated by the anchor before, is published by Bloomsbury in 2022. It's called The Human Mind Through the Lens of Language, Generative Explorations. He's been at this generative exploration for a very long as I've known him. This book breaks new ground actually in well, I won't say cognitive science, but in a very different area in a sense. So it's about the human mind and what it really is. So he has other books as well. So Primacy of Grammar from MIT Press. He has got The Cartesian Mind from Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Architecture of Language, which is a speech by Noam Chomsky given in Delhi University, and he edited this with other linguists, and he has worked in a very wide range of disciplines. So he's worked on justice and rights, and he has a book on December 2013. If you might remember, there was an attack on the parliament. So he has a book called December 2013, Terror Over Democracy, and he has also a book on Maoists in India. Ever since he's retired, he's got even more active than before. So it is very interesting in itself and very encouraging for all of us. So we can still do something after retirement, I guess. The title of his talk is, I think, A Homeric Struggle on Language and Mind. So I think this phrase is from Strawson, is it? Right. Yeah, I did remember. Though I think this phrase occurred in Chomsky's Rules and Representations. I don't think I read Strawson's original thing. Yeah, maybe not. So anyway, I request Professor Mukherjee to please begin. So you have to speak into these two. You can sit here. You can sit here.
This light is directly on my eyes. And as you said, old man. With the one eye cataract.
So you have to speak into both these mics.
But I also need to use the blackboard.
Oh, that's fine.
The white. Where is
I give you the white.
I need to reach there. And when I go there,
I have.
Also, you know, the voice has not speak loudly. No problem at all.
Hey, Nilanjan, I can't hear Nirmalangshuda at all.
Hi,
Hey, speak to the mic, man.
I didn't know that you were around. Where are you from?
That doesn't matter, but there are 48 people around. Nobody can hear you.
Yeah, but where are you? Are you in India or in the West?
No, I am in Hawaii.
But it was very late there.
Talk about the Homeric struggle, but speak in the mic.
Very late. 11 o'clock here means at least 1:30 in the United States. 1:30 to 2 or something. Hello. I'm very glad that Arindam is around here. It's been a long time. The only problem.
Give him a mic, man.
Yeah, we do have a mic. That also working. That might also working. I might want to go to the.
Yes.
I need to that happens in mind. Yeah, so can you all hear me now properly?
Yes.
In the audience, right? People worry about online because they are probably connected to this mic. I don't know the technical things involved. No wonder I'm very, very glad and slightly emotionally charged to come here after a long, long time. And good to see you. Many, many convenient places, friendly places, and some very bright new places. So things are going on as desired, and as it happens in human flow until the species gets extinct at some point. Good. Are the online people able to hear me? Yeah, they are. I'm surprised and very pleased. I don't know it. Really? 1:30 in the night there. Very late. Okay. Now, about the topic, is it slightly of cheating here? Because yeah, I do have title in mind, the Homeric struggle, but that was in a very different context. I mean, if you recall, if you have read that paper, I all recommend that you all read that paper, because that is very pertinent to the kind of things that I was just hearing Arindam say about which are the joints where we might be most profitably engaging our more classical concerns with their concerns. Philosophy of language has always been one such fertile ground, as Arindam's own work has shown, as Motilal's work has shown. But this particular point about the Homeric struggle in language theory is something that is really a meeting ground between the two things, and I centrally have Bhattacharya in mind, but that's not my topic today. My topic is basically my new book, and I think a similar kind of Homeric struggle. Just to step back, Strawson talked about the Homeric struggle between what he called formalist views of language, and he listed people like Frege, Russell, and early Wittgenstein, and probably Carnap, maybe Quine. But he also lists other kind of theorists of language where he finds John Austin and later Wittgenstein and other people, John Searle maybe, and so on. And he thinks that there's a Homeric struggle there. There does not seem to be such a Homeric struggle. Nothing needs to be cleaned up in terms of the Aegean stable. They all need to accommodate it, basically. But here we really face, in the case of mind, we really face the Homeric struggle in the form of actually able to clean up the Aegean stable in some sense. I will explain the metaphor as we go along. To make the matters very, very simple and keep it at a very simple level, things can get out of hand very quickly in these areas, as you know. What I'm going to talk about is, as Nilanjan very quickly but literally mentioned, about what's in the human mind. So I'm not going to talk about, not generally about what is the human mind or how we define the human mind and so on. Those are slightly old-fashioned topics and very difficult to make progress in those things. And how to define human mind depends on what you mean by human mind. Immediately other languages come in, other traditions come in. Is Manan a mind? Is Buddhi a mind? Is Riddhi a part of mind? So on. And is intelligence, but does it belong to mind? So let's not get into definitional things or the concept of mind as such. So in these cases, which is the most profitable and prudent thing to do, is to simply hold on to some notion of mind which is available in the form of a text. That's how we proceed in philosophy. We hold on to a text and then we get something. Oh, thank you very much. It was needed very much. Can I have it? So, so as a text, we need a text, and we can reject the text as we proceed, but that's a starting point. So the text gives you the groundwork of where we belong. And since it is my discussion is directed more to most of the students, who I don't think are very familiar with the kind of work I do. So I will keep it to that level, a very introductory level of discussion on what follows from some textual notion of mind. And I have in mind the most classical form of textual understanding of mind via Descartes' notion of mind. I'm not getting into details of Descartes' scholarship and Descartes' Descartes' literature and all that. A lot has been written on that. I have written on that too. Take a look if you want. But I think there's a problem there. And I simply don't have the mind-body problem in mind at all. Okay, the basic problem that people see with the Cartesian concept of mind is the mind-body problem. Dualism and all that. I will simply set it aside because I don't know how to formulate the dualist problem. And I don't know where it has led to ultimately, where there's a solution. If there is a problem, there should be a solution, where there is a solution. I think it's a non-problem, the dualism thing. The more interesting thing about what his specific claims about the human mind are. Okay. Then where it belongs to the brain or to the mind of God or to some ethereal domain, these are independent of what is contained in it. Then you ask where it is located and so on. So let's set that issue aside. The most prominent issue of the Cartesian mind aside, namely the mind-body dualism. Let's set that aside and simply ask, so what do you want out of the notion of a mind? What did you want? Okay, now he says some very instructive things. One of the things is that he thinks that the concept of mind is kind of restricted to the human beings. He did not quite say that. He did not use the notion of a mind as contrasted to human mind. There's a problem in his textuality. He just talks about mind and talks about humans. And so let's not get into the details. Why don't you find a seat to chair somewhere? There are lots of chairs. Yeah. One thing he said very clearly, that he simply did not think of animals, which he very sarcastically called them brutes. That animals simply don't have the mind. For his notion, now, because but it is reverberating. So it is. Is it all right?
It's fine, it's fine. It's quite okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, now it is not reflecting back again. Good. Where was I? Why should so I think I was talking about Descartes' idea of animals. Okay, and he thought of the animals as automatons in a very interesting sense, and I love that phrase, so therefore I want to use that again. He thought of animals as the nature's splendid artifact. It's a beautiful expression and exactly appropriate, I think. So, but let's not get into that. Read my book if you want. So that's the reason why animals don't have a mind. They are just an artifact. So it follows that only living things, not artifacts, have minds. Automatons cannot have a mind. They are defined as a non-mind. Being automaton means non-mind and so on and so forth. Let's not get into all that terminological problem. So that's his reason for thinking that animals don't have a mind, because they are automatons, nature's splendid artifacts. Okay, Good. Now, one positive reason why the notion of mind is needed, according to Descartes, is to account for the existence of languages. Now, that is, as you all know, that the central focus is on language, that it is a necessary condition to own or to be endowed with a language to have a mind. And minds, I mean, it's not, does not strictly follow that if you have a, does not strictly follow. But let's assume so. A language of mind come in a systemic. That's straight up. What else is there in mind? About mind is not very identical. You see, setting that aside, the noise of
Can they hear? Can they hear already? Is it audible now? No, they can hear, no. No, they can hear, okay, good, thanks. So please, hold the microphone closer to you. Closer, yeah, or maybe you can shift towards the desk. Shift to the, shift you can just, shift forward. Move. Better. I'm worried about what could happen when I go to the board. Okay, let's see. I'll be the page when it comes. Get those mics. But then I can't write. Now. Language will ask later, but at least it's in the mind. Animals don't have, fine, because animals don't have language. Only that is very well known application for students. And most of these things I'm saying what they are not really is a kind of standard textual material like meditations and quotes and seminars and those things that is basically what they are kind of early in the class. The class is in a different in the last stage. When he wrote all those long letters to his friends and his female colleagues, things, and rich people, princesses and so on. So that's a story about the garden. Set aside. So they are now published a wonderful volume by Cunningham, I think, from Cambridge University Press in the early 90s. Collected letters, collected works of the art. One of the volumes contains letters And most of the things that I would say about the art today are basically we found in the letter. So in one of the letters to the famous Dr. Bhowmick, he writes that every human being, even devoid of the organs of speech, even the stupidest of them, that not cooking one, even the stupidest of them. Okay. Don't think he mentions the item deaf and dumb in that position. He mentions something else. Even if they are stupid, even if they are deaf and dumb, okay, they can always use signs to express their genuine thoughts. No brutes can ever do that. That's the hallmark of being endowed with a language, to be able to express one's thoughts through signs. Even if you are deaf and dumb, even if you don't have the organs of speech, still have signs and still have those inner thoughts. Somehow the signs relate to thoughts. That's and brutes don't have it. Simple. Now, if they don't have it because they're automatons, is a different question, much more philosophical question. But we doing and all that, as you know, and not getting into artificial intelligence. I'm not getting into all that. So language is there in the mind. What else is there in the mind? Now, because now this here comes the twist in the text. Because animals are artifacts, the automatons, they are also, they don't have consciousness. According to Descartes, and according to our notion of consciousness, they're all very technical things. I'm not getting into that at all. For example, we did grant sensations to animals, but not perception. Whether these sensations are a thing for people who are developing of the character of the will become God is something that you might want to evaluate. Just think of explaining subtle point our perspective. But again, I'm thinking exciting. This is not a problem. But I'm setting aside all those details of what is involved in the notion of consciousness. But essentially, animals are not conscious, they are unconscious. And so consciousness is a part of being a non-robot, therefore it's a part of being mind. So now we are language and consciousness, two things. And perhaps he wants to include perception as part of the mind, not maybe sensation, but perception as part of the mind. And of course, things like reasoning, and so on. And so here, very large history that follows from the mind. He categorically talks about vision being a part of the mind. As people like John Skinner pointed out later on, it's a good volume by edited by James McIntyre. He edited on where he was pointed out that the practitioner has a view that there is a oppositional theory of vision also, but on mimicking the part. So let's suppose that perception at this vision is there in mind. And I now go to the board. Just a chart of two things. How do I
You can speak directly into this.
And people see the
Yeah, online people can see and hear you. Yeah.
The technical people able to listen to the talk, or are they just hanging out with the wires and stuff? That's always the problem.
People who organize the conference don't take part in the conference. It's always mishap.
We are recording it. You listen to it.
Better late than never. So can I?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there a bit more light?
Yeah, can you go on? Can you click on this light?
On the light, nothing. We can on the lights. We can on the.
Yes, yeah.
Good. So now what we have,
So can you ask it audible to them?
am I online audible? Audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now look at the whiteboard, please. So what we have roughly is something like this. That there is an area called the mentality of mind, okay, where we have something called language, something called consciousness, and then another level there, language, consciousness, okay, and we have these things that states. Let's not try to define any of these things. We have perception, that is vision. Perception, so perception that is vision. So we have all these in the mind. Okay. Now the problem is, what does Descartes want? He wants a concept of mind to be human specific because language is not there. Okay. But he also wants the concept of mind to have all these things. Let's suppose. Okay. The evidence is rather scattered in the text. So let's suppose he wants consciousness, he wants perception, vision, reasoning, etc. as part of the mind. The point here, I'm not going to argue this point because it's a heavy discussion for 500 years by now. But still by the empiricists and so on, and now in recent years, it's hugely discussed in the last few decades after the emergence of cognitive science and animal studies, ethnography, and all that. It is simply false that animals don't have any consciousness. Let's take for granted the animals are not conscious. If you have a pet dog, to say that he's unconscious, or that it does not have a perception, that is, does not recognize you as a human being or a master. I mean, they don't have vision. I think animals have far better vision. Most animals have far better vision than humans, because humans compensate the poverty of the vision with other things. Language being one important contributor here. Reasoning, well, that's kind of tentative, because reasoning is yes and no. If by reasoning you mean a propositional thought kind of thing, sequences of propositional thought. Okay. Then animals don't have it. Let's take it for granted because they cannot form propositions in the linguistic sense. Let's suppose. But reasoning in the form of inference making, animals can't make inference. Well, I mean, if you read Tim Corbett, you don't have to do a lot of animal studies and recent journals and all that. Let's read Tim Corbett or Kenneth Anderson. And you will see those solitary leopards thinking for months ahead and miles ahead. They cover a huge territory for a whole year. And they have lots of things in memory and they can put these things together. So it's rather controversial that animals don't have reason, but they probably have reason to an extent. So if the concept of mind is going to be human specific, we simply have to take all these things out because they are all there. So let's have this kind of a drastic step here. Cutting through anything because we are
It's controversial if you don't know. So most of it probably lost language. So that's not a part of mind. So let me take that part of mind. It is no longer, Descartes is simply wrong. It is not part of my mind. So far as Descartes is concerned, get all the language and so that the reason, and that's all. But then to think about it, I mean, this year I can sing Descartes also. But later studies see that. Now you can think about it a bit more. So what are the kind of human specific cognitive abilities that we can chart? The moment you really think about it, the list is virtually endless. So you can begin with things like music. But there is bird song thing, that's it. So music. They do not come up with the ragas or melodies or scales or something like that, or sonatas or something. There are verbal patterns in some words, which have to be here, but there's nothing like constructive music. I think Nilanjan mentioned the term, the generative explorations. So it belongs to generative. And the music is a good thing, I mean, you can simple arithmetic. I'm putting it more or less on the border because there are certain arithmetical abilities that humans also have, but they probably do not have generated arithmetic. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 infinity. They can visualize and they can see a finite number of things together, 3 or 4 things together. So you have to work of tangent, make work. They can also do what's called the Weber function, that is, they can compare large quantities with small quantities, but they really cannot count beyond 4. Okay. So that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of evidence we have so far, but human babies cannot do it to any extent you want, and they are soon understanding. For example, I remember my son. I asked my son, so what is the highest number? And I think he was 3 or 4. So he was probably in kindergarten. It was obviously in kindergarten. And the highest number, I think I must have just sitting in class. They are found in the class, mentioned in the class. Could be, let's say, 1,000 or something like that. That's a big number. And but my son was like smart, so he said 1,000,000. And I said, well, what about 1,000,000 plus 1? And he immediately got the point. The point is not the number, the point is he got the point. The 1,000,000 plus 1 is greater than 1, and then you can add to the 1,000,000 plus 1 another 1. And it can go on. That's the capacity we are talking about as the generative capacity, which we don't quite see that good so far. So far, so we have quite a few things. Okay, and if you want me to list the whole thing, I can fill up the whole thing in no time. I think knitting. Okay, knitting is a generative. Playing games is a generative. Just of course. Okay. Almost kinship is a generative. Form kinship. Fathers, mothers, grandmothers, grandmothers. And so there's lots of things. Although cooking is definitely different. In the same sense, in knitting. I can go on. Take a look at the book again too. Kind of thing that may be listed there. It's a jungle there. A generative jungle. All satisfying the criterion, the Cartesian criteria of being something like the language, something akin to language. Okay. Is that the mind? What is the mind? Now here we face a second. First problem was the human specificity, the exception to human specificity. don't know after how many years I'm using a phone. It's legible, more or less. Okay. So that's the first condition of mind, which took out all this out. Second condition, I would certainly call it, without much ado, right stop. Now, what is Ryle's problem? Ryle said, don't ask the question, I've proved this speaking. Don't ask the question, what is the mind? Mind is a collection of processes, systems, and stuff like that. You just started it. Okay. We can keep talking about the more we talk about those systems, the more mind we get. Don't ask what is the mind, because asking that would be something like a capital mistake. I'm saying that again, repeating that for the student, but that's an important insight for I. We no longer discuss it, it's an old book. Okay? I don't think anyone reads the concept of mind anymore. Maybe you will. So, yes, I don't ask what is the mind after they exhausted the list. The list, the mind. Sure. And for example, his famous analogy was the arm. So you're watching the Republic Day parade, okay, and you take a child with you. Well, we are going to see the army today, and then the horses pass, then the cavalry pass, and then the tank, then a division marches pass, and the child sees, where's the army? Where's the army? That's not the question to ask. It's already done. There's no army over and above the division and the platoons and the. So that's the mind. Now that isn't very convincing. I mean, it's convincing that the logical argument is convincing. But to say of the whole thing that it is the mind, okay, meeting human specific criteria is not convincing. That's the whole cognitive science research is all about. That's the Homeric struggle, in my view. I want to elaborate on this. The problem is, okay, there is this generative factor in each of these things. Okay, let's have to find out. One of my favorite things is talking, okay, weaving, sure, and so on. Yes. Now, if we look at any of these activities as a process, as a total process, okay, beginning with the paradigmatic case of language, okay, it is simply false that the entire linguistic system is human specific. Because language is extremely complex. Now, so lots of things complex. Sounds, meaning, phonology, morphology, concepts. Okay. It's got associated with gestures, okay, associated all sorts of things, word knowledge, things like that. So there's no end to what's involved in notional language. And much of it is, of course, with animals. Okay. For example, there are very few experiments by Mark Hauser and his team. I think we will repeat it somewhere in class later on. That even birds can respond to human phonetic sounds. They love, bark. They can. And of course, some of them can imitate some of the sound. So the human sound part, the sound part of human language, obviously, no one speaks English. That's a different question. But at least the elements of the sound part are available to, and whether they are able to combine them together, that's a different question. Elements of it. Similarly, concepts. I mean, it is somewhat. I don't think animals have any concepts at all. Okay, but that's a theory I have not yet developed. I'm beginning to develop it. I think that lies. 5 years you will see that. But right now it is in the context. But therefore, suppose that animals have some conceptual ability. Cognitive, they do. Okay. And they find some flaws of cognition. The animals have some concepts. They know what their food is, they know what their environment is, they know what their home is, they know who their master is, they know what the prey is, we know what the predator is, so on and so forth. They have all sorts of concepts. Whether this is our concept applied to, we are applying to them to explain their behavior, they're more complex. And better, they have the concept of the behavior. Okay, let's suppose that. If that is the case, then at least part of the meaning of human language belongs to humans. Now, if you do this kind of but therefore ultimately what remains kind of uncontested is that there is a single invented language. Okay. Which we call the computational code. Okay. I've already hinted on that by saying the ability to put things together. Okay. More specifically, the ability to put ideas. Not just things, ideas. So not just putting pebbles together, and crows can do that. Logs together, chimpanzees can do that, but ideas. So you have to have ideas first, and then you are able to put them together. That's the kind of thing that language allows. Both at the word level, by the way, that's why you have from phonology to morphophonology. Combination of phonological elements in more complex units called morphophonology. That's where we get a word or one word of another word. So my third example is the class using the word verb. If people who are in my class are still there, in this audience. So from verb you could have verbal. Verbal, you can have verbalize. From verbalize, you can have verbalization. Have verbalizationalize. And so on. So that all begins with the root verb. Then you can. That's morphology. That's the ability to put items phonological items together. There's also evidence in so far. And of course, the more obvious element that concerns people like Chomsky of putting the words together. Words together to form phrases, sentences, and so on. That's the kind of ability that's simply that is kind of undisputed. Rest of the thing seems to be available to animals. So what I mean by language is basically, and I'm simply assuming similarly is the case with things like me. There's the general part. Okay. How to deal with time? I need 10 minutes. 10 minutes. What to say that? And Nilanjan knows what to say on this. 10 minutes. So even we can use this principle case with elements of music, the tones, and other things may be available outside the human domain, but the ability to put tones together to form more complex things called scales, modes, bars, melodies, something like that human goal. Cooking, I really don't know whether there is any evidence of cooking, putting elements together in animals around. I'll be interested if you can try, for example, of you have seen animals. Animals use tools in a very interesting way. There are many examples of tool using. Okay? And but whether they can cook something, say putting a piece of meat in a fire or something, so you have to build a fire. So, or whether to soften it, put it in some water. I don't know, but there's some examples of cooking in animals. So, but the kind of cooking that every human being does in some way is simply not. That's also a combination. So then this combination thing practically. Let's suppose. So now the mind is reduced to a combination of genetic properties in different mental domains. Okay. Are they same or are they different? These genetic properties I mean. Okay, so by L and W and C, I will now need that the genetic part. Are they same or are they different? Okay, now if they are different, you again have Rayleigh's problem. Because mind is then a collection of these things. Okay, you can't ask, where is the mind? Mind is just a collection of these things. You're exhausted the list, you're exhausted the mind. Now, the list is about the generative properties of these human specific domains. Or the human specific properties of the mental system. They become mental systems because they have these properties. Okay, that's it. So again, you have Rayleigh's problem that Mr. Master, okay. There's a problem with applying Rayleigh's view to this notion of mind. Now, that takes you to more technical things. I'm not getting into that too much. Basically, I will call it saltation. Everyone simply taking point. Now, the saltation problem that I just solved, our assumption is that, it's still an assumption, hotly debated everywhere I go. So, the assumption is that the generative properties in the mental systems are human traits. So, you cannot explain their origin from pre-owned functions. So there's nothing like, suppose suppose the linguistic combinatorial thing is called C. So we have C. Will we call it merge? No, we have something. So let's call it whatever. Let's give it some name. Call it omega. Now we don't have any evidence of less omega in animals, or half omega, or quarter omega, or 0.1 omega, or something. So omega is not something. Omega is not something that will have a little bit of the animal taste or a large bit of in the human case. Okay. And it is kind of flinching if you look at exactly what you're doing. So that's where you have to go to theory. And if you look at the theory, you will now find that what is there as a human linguistic combinatorial factor, which is called, now reduced to, after decades of research, it is now reduced to an operation called merge. What is called merge? What is merge? Merge is just an unordered set made out of two elements, alpha and beta. That's all there is to merge. Okay. Now, in order to combine, you need at least two things. But you can also have one thing and then combine it over again. But more standardly speaking, two things. Okay. And the least combination is an unordered set. Okay. Anything bigger, like mixing or concatenating or ordering, everything is much more complex. Just having a set. Another set is the least combination of the least number of elements. That much. Okay, so now it's clear, because this is, you can have half of it, or 1/4 copy of one time. I don't. There's a lot of discussion in the literature and the linguistic literature about whether it's demi-merge, semi-merge, and that. Okay. I'm kind of taking for granted. There's no such thing. The merge or no merge. Okay. So that's the nature of this combinatorial thing. Why am I talking? So it can't be in the animals. Therefore, it cannot have a pre and an own function. There is no earlier function of which it is derived. In the concept case, yes. In the sound case, yes. Okay, maybe in the music case and other cases, or kinship cases, animals do recognize their mother and siblings. So that's one step higher. They don't recognize their fathers. Well, I'm getting a little old, so I have some senility keeping in. And so one thought leads to another thought aimlessly. And since I hope it's still there. Okay. I remember something he told me many decades ago about fatherhood. Now, since he's here, I just remember it. Why animals don't have a conception of father as a kid. Mother, sibling are kind of close by, physically, physiologically close by. Father, not on this context. He told me in the context of what is known as Shabda Pramana. Those who know English, and here comes very interesting book. I can only talk about old books, but I don't know about new books anymore. So he did a book with, I think he was talking in those days, or knowing some words, Shabda Pramana. And there, not in the book, he reported to me verbally that one Panditji, I don't know who it was, I don't know, and mine has to count. Pandit Mashai told him that you need Shabda because you probably know who your mother is. Okay. By instinct, let's say, just by in behavior. Do you know who your father is? It has to be told. Someone has to say, this is your father. That's your father. There is no natural biological information, as in the case of mother, maybe even in the case of sibling. So that's something. It has to be. So if you don't have language, you do not know who your father is. As simple as it. So chimpanzees cannot have. Chimpanzees don't have language. They cannot have the normal father. So their kinship hierarchy stops like this. So point is, none of these can be extracted from the animal kingdoms. Okay. So each of these must be falling and must have fallen from the sky. Huge evolutionary problem right now. How? Where did it come from? Huge. But they are simply not there. They must have fallen from the sky. I mean, Tanzania calls it sky hooks. So for each of them, is a sky hook. So he talked about language. Tanzania talked about language. But now, music, cooking, everything is a sky hook. Okay, that goes to the sky, gets a community system, and then we learn to put people together. Okay, that creates the problem. That it is evolutionary to be pretty meaningless. So if you believe in some form of materialism, that things are kind of from lower form to higher form, then these skyhooks are a problem. Now, this is called in biology, evolutionary biology, the saltation problem. Why is it called saltation? I don't know. Saltation problem. Probably the saltation on the ocean floor involves this. I don't know. Called the saltation problem. So there are examples in biology where a single evolutionary step creates a new species, not gradual thing as Darwin said. Darwin said that they become smaller, and then it's not that. They not the new species. It does happen in biology. There are, but it is very rare. and happens in a very lower life. Mostly it is plants in some lower animals. This kind of a single step species formation. Okay, you know, there are explanations. I'm not getting into that. How mutation takes place and all that. Okay, the point is, it is very rare biological. In these cases, we have no idea about what the biology is. We are talking about Descartes still, and we keep on talking about Descartes until the end of our life. Okay, so now invoking saltation for each of the human specific abilities is a big problem. Huge problem. That's the reason I guess basically that's my hunch. I don't have good evidence for that. That's why this model of the mind is not really pursued. People get stuck to language and then other things which are not really doable of the mind like consciousness. So consciousness perception. These are the big things about your mind. You have your mind in the Western circle. Basically defining the consciousness and perception. And I can just raise a complaint that it is thought that many of the moves in Indian philosophy of mind are also in that direction. I don't think that's right. We always found the connection of this, but it's an issue I'm not getting into that now. Not very confident. But the point is, how can there be so much saltation in a single species and a very short space of time? Okay, which basically defines the species. And that's all humans do. Daniel word. Cognitive science concerns what we will do. This is what we do. And everything what we do seems to be without saltation. Okay. So on the one hand, you cannot avoid saltation. On the other hand, you know, too much of saltation is not too good. For this kind of mind. So the optimum solution, a parsimonious solution will okay, let there be just one solution. And that creates less of the other derivatives. एक तो कम से कम चाहिए, एक मिल जाए, बाकी वहां से बना लेंगे. That's the idea. One saltation somewhere and rest are simply constructed from here or adopted from here. So they retain their human specificities in terms of their original saltation. Now, what could be that original saltation? Well, at least one original saltation seems to be inevitable. That is language. And we also know that what exploded in evolution? Merge. That came out of salvation. Because if it is true that the theory of language is based on the combinatorial device of merge, and if merge is not available in any form in the animal kingdom, merge is the only saltational emergence of language that will be able to make some language. And if our explanation was to be restricted to this one, we must be able to say that all human enterprises involved in the human mind are all products of merge, are all adopted from merge. Either that or this picture to the past. So that Homeric study is between a cluster theory of merge, a cluster theory of mind with lots of individual capacity, or a singular theory of mind with merge that is centered. It defines the entire human mental reality. Enough for today. Thank you.
Can you ask in the mic?
Nilanjan, are there any other questions from the audience, or can I ask my question?
Follow or no?
Am I audible?
Absolutely, more than audible.
I don't know what that means. But all through the talk, I was very unclear. You made it clear that it's not the Homeric struggle that Strawson talks about, which is between the formalistic truth condition theory of meaning and the use and more pragmatic theory of meaning. That's not your concern. It's about, but neither is it about mind-body problem. But anytime you talk about a struggle, Homeric or otherwise, I need to hear which are the two sides, like which are the two parties. It's clear that you are addressing the question of what is it that is exclusively human with respect to the mind, mind being taken as a pre-theoretical folk psychological concept of mind. But that's not a struggle. That's a question. So will it be fair to say that the two parties of the ongoing Homeric struggle in your talk today are party one, which says there are these 3 or 4 uniquely human capacities, the generative properties of, the recursive function of generating further untaught things, understanding, etc. Computational capacity, which I'm very glad the language you used is very similar to the most neglected book of Peter Strawson, that till the end of his life, he used to lament to me that nobody reads that. But that's my most favorite book, which is called Subject and Predicate in Logic and Grammar. And I think this, the tie-up is the computational ability in some sense. And then several other capacities, and you brought it down to a single one in some sense. So that's one side, that there are either many or clustering around a single capacity, something that humans have, and the other party is saying, no, those are not the most important characteristics of having a mind. Maybe some other capacities which have not something to do with language capacity, like the capacity to feel pain, phenomenal states. Are these the two sides? One which says mind has to be taken in a sense which is common to both animals and humans, and the other says, no, we are talking about human-centered concept of mind. It seemed halfway through the talk, those are the two sides. But towards the end, it sounded like it was a Homeric struggle between two parties, both of which admit that humans have a very unique sense of having a mind. They have a consciousness in some sense, nothing to do with the debate between access consciousness and phenomenal consciousness. But within the camp of only humans have this, but between the struggle between cluster theory and a single essence element theory, which of these two struggles are you talking about?
Okay, so it's the question is about the Homeric struggle right now is to talk to someone who I've seen. So, it's a struggle about the title, and I must confess that the title was kind of off the top of my head, so it doesn't mean very much. There are many Homeric struggles that I pointed out in the beginning. I don't want to go into all that, but I also mentioned the idea of the EG, cleaning the Aegean stable, and that was one of the themes of the Homeric struggle. Cleaning the Aegean stable, the stable of the mind needs to be cleaned up. And whether it needs to be cleaned up or not, or whether we keep it in the original mess. That's the part of the Homeric struggle. But there are many Homeric struggles as I mentioned, and so we need to spend one of each of them as 7 minutes. But the most interesting thing, since I mentioned it, and then very little time, is that in fact that could have been my original intuition. That's an intuition, nothing more. Right? That's Frosting's original Homeric struggle. Because you are here, that's take my mind at that stage. May have something to do with how we resolve the Homeric struggle around the mind now. May have something to do. See that as you interact with you pointed out, the concept of mind is the narrowest concept of mind after the cleaning of the Aegean stable is based on some computational performance notion of mind, but he also made wonderful contributions in other parts of the language, and particularly having in mind the paper that I also not very much to study. What is studied more, mentioned more is on in response to the one, that is a hot topic. But a more subtle paper, which I always found one, is a similar terms of education. I think it is discussed in the subject or immunologically. I'm not sure anything. So that paper, he also raises the issue of how certain forms of formalist theories of language fail. If by formalist theory of language it means something like so one cannot, they kind of fail because they don't take into account something that is built into the nature of language, namely the other relationships. So that's kind of the communication thing to point. These are the mentioned in the paper. The idea that there is a distinction between simply getting an information and between simply giving information and drawing attention to what you are already informed of. The fundamental distinction he makes in that paper, which I think ultimately it's working on. It's working, right? So that distinction may have to be about how we settle the Homeric struggle around the mind. What we want to include in the notion of mind will ultimately have to do with how we it's the notion of mind to other domains of human cognitive behavior, some of which may or may not involve language. In the problem case, I don't involve language, but that's not the issue we are discussing here. We're discussing the length and breadth of the concept of mind. How narrowly can it be constituted and how broadly it needs to be constituted. And that's the Homeric struggle, and that's where something that the Straussian inside about other relations, which obviously is the other relations, the necessity of the theater in the notion of the language, maybe there's some necessity of the concept in the notion of mind too. Not the obvious how people do the kind. But it looks like at the moment that the qualitative notion of an individual mind may not be sufficient to describe the notion of the human mind as we find it today. Some notion of the other religion, some notion of the concept in mind may be internally required to explain the functions of the integral function of the language, the demonstrative function of the mind. It is now more or less given that animals don't have the kind of digital demonstrative function that the human brain used to so maybe there's something in the idea of other directions and involved in the human brain also, which is responsible for the notion of human demonstration, which is not there. So the notion of a linguistic demonstration versus a gestural demonstration may have something very close, something very intimate that could be traced to the generative notion of mind. These are all the aspects of the Homeric discovery and now giving each other form. That's what I meant. So, yeah.
Nilanjan, I have one more question, which I think most of the audience here would like to know your answer to. And you can just answer yes and no, yes or no. It will help us to understand what is that generic notion of mind you are operating with, even if open-endedly. If you answer this question, what about AI? That is, most of the abilities, the capacities that you talked about, generative properties, computational capacity, merging, even dovetailing of subject and predicates and NPVP, obviously, just as dogs can smell better than us, AI can do better than us, all these languages. In my own university in Hawaii, as well as in the few years that I spent in Stony Brook, there are programs in cognitive science who are developing robots and AI systems which are generating funny jokes and poems and everything. Now, one thing, even I used to think self-consciousness is another feature, but even self-reference is very well realized in AI systems. So what is your stance at this point about, in your sense of mind, would you say artificial intelligence or cyborgs would have minds?
I think you have asked two questions, the earlier one and the last one is easy to answer. AI is developed by human beings, but human mind. So that's the story ends, begins and ends. There's nothing, AI evidence tells you nothing about nothing new about the mind. They actually replenishes the idea of mind. That's not the problem. The problem is whether the notion of mind should be restricted to the idea of a generative mind. That's so much more of a theoretically more problem. This kind of hinted at by doing kind of paper, and I'm getting old and engaged more and more with practical papers. Right? I read the Scotland papers much more than anything that's coming out in the government. All to these papers. They did give a very strong edge. All there is to human intelligence, because it has always been mind, is the idea of computationality. But that is kind of what's strongly established now in terms of evidence from other domains. And that's the basic focus of this book. That given the computational problem, the only option we have in this program is to develop a merge-based theories of the generativeness in other domains. Some of this particular already in progress. Now, the point is whether that exhausts the topic of mind. That's partly a matter of taste in language. We did not really bother about whose notional mind are we to capture. So these are usually just technical innovations. So that's why I come to Descartes. How far does Descartes notional mind is? That's the question number 3 right here. Now, if the question is asked about whether the notion of the generative mind is the only notional mind, then the burden of course is that anything else that we want to attach to the notional mind now must be traced to some non-human function. Either this or that. That's a strong challenge, which is being actually faced by some so, but that's a huge challenge. And I'm not your philosophical satisfaction. Because the generative notional mind does not quite clarify the notion of human thought, which of course is central to the notion of human mind. So I don't think the idea of generativity captures the necessity for human beings. And the not get any brain to be. That's where how come the human mind is able to generate something like AI, which kind of replicates itself, which kind of surrounds itself and consumes to the extent that so, of course, once you have the computational function, you can keep on enriching it by simply adding programs. So that they accomplish more and more and more and more. As long as you digitize your input and use the ability to read the digitized output, which are both human. So on both ends of the human mind, buying the digitized input and reading the digitized outputs. That's still done by AI. And that can be a big box or a small box, or it can be up to 0. In my view, if I think it's up to 0 instead of 10 and people, that will become completely over. That's just nothing very more than that. The other question is where does the human thought lies? You mentioned about poetry and other things. That's obviously a part of human mind. But which notion of human mind will ultimately cover the range of human art or the range of human poetry, not the ability to do something. Whether these questions will ultimately fall into the quote unquote scientific notion of mind are doing, or whether they will be pursued indefinitely as a philosophical question. It's something that I think we should be able to do. At the moment, it's something, it could be something like a dark matter in physics, we can get the quantification. Like everyone knows that there is dark matter, namely most of the energy in the physical universe is cannot explained by physics. And that there are in dark matters, there is dark energy. So everyone knows that, and that basically means that we don't know. It's there. No one doubts the physical existence of dark matter and dark energy, but no one has the theory. That's the state of it. So whether they don't really have a philosophy of dark matter, it is the thing that remains dark matter. But in the question of mind, we particularly have theory or concern with dark matter in the. That's what we do when the angels or maybe there's some notion of a scientific notion of mind that can teach to the competition of mind and see how far it goes and how far the competition bound can be. That's a fairly scientific balance. Ultimately, you get difficulty by the neuroscientists. The broader question is where this notion of mind takes us in terms of the wider notion of mind is probably contained in the important question, which was partly addressed in my earlier 2017. As usual, these questions, answers to these questions remain hopelessly limited. I'm sure it did not enlighten any mind at all. But that was what I'm thinking. Confused. It's not still there.
Yeah, he's just, you
Wow.
can see him.
Did you want to sleep tonight or not? Okay.
I want to listen to K.A. Moitra's papers. That's why I'm keeping away.
Oh,
Sorry,
wonderful.
Nirmala.
Oh, wonderful.
There is another paper we are waiting for.
So we will take 2 more questions from students here to Sandra.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
My question is regarding the skills that we included in the mind ability, that is cooking and weaving. Are we leaving the physical aspect of human body and the capacities to do so while the animals do not have the capacity? In a sense that we were able to do such things with the use of a thumb. We ought to carry things and we could cook and these things progress. Aren't we missing this aspect of evolution when we talk about these animals and we attribute, we do not attribute such abilities because they don't have in their mental ability to do so. But it has more to do with the body as well, physical abilities that we have developed through evolution. And yet, chimpanzees are still developing. So, if there is a possibility that these abilities can in future be attributed to them. So that's my question.
Excellent question. I must say that the last part I want to answer because I'm still working on how humanity is developing or the developing now. They to speak how the human language. I don't know whether they are developing this part. All we know is that they kind of emerged from the human link about 7 million years ago. And what we know anthropological evidence is that the state of condition of the planets a million years ago, it's not very different from the state of condition of humanity now. So that's what humanity searches. That's highly after now, but you pointed out one big lacuna in my presentation. Probably in my thinking of namely that I want to mention that when we talk about things like cooking or reading or playing games, or these are kind of physical activities. So you can reveal the common skills. Still, language is a skill. And speaking a language is certainly a skill. But thinking in the language is a skill. It's something great, or skill in the same sense, which we can get. It requires a lot of practice. But cooking and reading and playing games are skills are certain very strongly physical. I should have prefaced my discussion on those possibilities saying I'm concerned with the thoughts that go with you need to think. You need to think to be called. You go out to bat further. Then you're constantly like that. When people anecdotally told some seats, look and saw, people who are thinking about what they would do. And the mental attitude, they keep on doing it. And of course, cooking is a part of it. I mean, you have to think and so that those thoughts now, whether those propositional thoughts or immediately thoughts or non-propositional, then discuss those. If they are propositional thoughts, then probably it's a derivative of language. I hunch it that if you're talking non-propositional, like in the economy, you can have propositional thoughts and out. No, should be allowed. No, it's not. It's not getting better. No, but that's not the idea. You can say it's over, but the comments on the music. But that's obviously language. But whether the linguistic itself is nature, what it's something that can be repeated. And my more I think that these are mostly images, but nonetheless. So that's the point I'm talking about, that these are thoughts that determine the course of the skill. So further, how far you can implement these thoughts depends on what the physical thought. For example, I can confess that I have lots of thoughts about which kind of competition I will do if I am given access to the piano. But I don't have access to the piano. Okay, and I have continually know that if I do have access to the piano, okay, I will actually execute this. The thought about is there. That tells you the conceptual separation between skills and thoughts. And my discussion is only to the thought.
So,
More or less, okay?
we have time for only one more question, so we have to.
I have 4 questions to ask you.
No, it's of this one.
Both of those two, right?
Yes,
I have no.
I can speak louder, but.
Hello. So my question is that throughout the theory, I sense that it was more of a positive theory of mind. So my concern is, which I think is generally missed out in most of these accounts of theories of mind or generally like philosophies of mind, is that most of them are very positive. But what I'm interested in is how do the negative aspects, the incapacities, the the things that we can't do or that we, for example, the theory of error in Indian philosophy, as Nilanjan was saying, we should include that, like try to give an account of that as well through our theory of mind. Why do we falter? Why do we make errors? Why are we so much resistant towards things? All our personal, I don't know, recalcitrance or whatever, I mean, the incapacities. These things also have to have an account in our notion of the mind, right? So the negative actions in certain fields of psychoanalysis, for example, bungled actions or resistances towards analysis, these kind of things are very much critical to the notion of the subject himself or the self or themselves. So it's not just the positive attributes, the features that I can do, also the things that I cannot do. So what do you think about this?
Distinguish between two notions of negativity and the that of course there are many aspects of human behavior and human life which make this up to very burden like way to words which make an happen for some. The rectification of the counts keeps us in track. Think. I mean, they are congenital that makes an account to that to do. All that requires a mind. All that requires a mind. Most of these are controlled. And they require the human language, which of course is simple. On the guideline requirement in the mind to do this. And so the first part of the question was slightly different. From the negative notion of mind itself, I think the next picture comes right. Stop. The negative notion of mind itself, then we have a negative notion of mind, that the mind cannot do these things. Now, that's a more reasonable that even in the human being, you want to see mind cannot do these things. These are not aspects of the mind. There is a suggestion in some area of thinking. I can only remember the Bangla thing, the thought capable of doing. Not everything can be addressed by something like faith. The faith is essentially non-propositional, probably even non-mental. There could be argument like that in many cases of human behavior or human thought, that additional component we do not pay attention because we don't know how to operate it, especially because the mind fails to do it. But it is required because without the account of those aspects, human existence and accounting is incomplete. And if you have something like this in mind, you will probably agree that you will try within local nationality, the human activity, because they have the notion of mind. From the mental presence is a notion that is difficult to understand. And that is not a part of the theory of the mind. The theory of the mind does not produce any such like authoritative implication. But that's something to be looked at, I think, while we are promoting what you call what you do with mind. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Mukherjee. We don't have time to take any more questions. Professor Diamacho is waiting, has been waiting for quite some time. So you can, I think Professor Mukherjee will be around, so you can grab him later with you in lunch.